Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of the Peach Button Podcast. It's I, joined by Buzz Brockway and Scott Turner. Guys, good to see your faces. We are a couple days late with the podcast this week.
Had to be.
There's a lot of stuff going on, and there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. So on what was it, Wednesday? Russia had invaded Ukraine. I think something that a lot of people didn't think was actually going to happen, considering Russia had built up along the Ukrainian border for so long and hadn't really done anything. But now they have invaded a country that with no cause or reason whatsoever. It does seem like the capital of Kiev is probably going to fall within the next day or so. Russian forces are already inside the capital city, which means President Vladimir Zelensky is he's staying there. And saw a tweet this morning that said, in which he apparently told EU leaders that this may be the last time they see him alive. So things are certainly ominous, and I think a lot of people are trying to figure out like what Putin's end goal is here. And I think it's pretty clear. One thing is pretty clear: we do seem to be on the brink of another world war. Because if you look at what Putin is theoretically trying to do here, it seems like he is trying to build a buffer between Russia and the West. And that buffer includes Ukraine, Belarus, and the Baltic states, all of which are members of NATO.
Right.
And the United States has an Article 5 responsibility to defend those countries if they are attacked. Article 5 says an attack on one is an attack on all. If President Biden is mobilizing some troops to those areas, it certainly seems that things are going to get very tense, or they're already very tense, but they're going to keep getting more and more tense. So guys, I want to take a moment here to get your thoughts on what's happening and what may very well happen here in the coming weeks and months.
Well, I've been reading a lot, and there's a lot at play here. I think it's clear, Jason, you were wondering what Putin's intentions were. I think he's been signaling for a long time. He longs for what he considers the glory days of the Soviet Empire. Of course, he's a former KGB agent, and I think he's been testing the waters for a while. On what he can get away with, how far he thinks he can push things, and this is really an important moment. He wants to rebuild the Soviet Empire, and whether that means territorial occupation or just being a menace to the world, that remains to be seen. But he's cozied up to China right before the Olympics. China and Russia announced a partnership, of course, and then Russia humiliated China in their own games with a cheating scandal of 15-year-old doping ice queen. But we shouldn't have been surprised, and I think President Biden had been taking an interesting tactic, and that was loudly proclaiming what they thought was going to happen as quickly as they got the information, and it seems that the intelligence thus far that has been gathered has been spot on. Everything that the president said, here's what we're hearing they're going to do, they've done. The timing was a little off, and perhaps announcing, I think it was maybe I have the time wrong, but I think it was last week. President was saying they're going to invade perhaps early as Wednesday. It didn't happen Wednesday, but it happened, and I think, President's coming under a lot of criticism. The Trump forces are running around saying that, and Trump himself is saying, well, if he was president, this never would have happened. Okay. We'll never know that. That's an unanswerable question. It's a dumb thing to say. It's a partisan political moment, and this is a time when we should rally around and support our president and pray that he makes the best decisions. This is as Jason, as you said, this is a very, very dangerous time. This could set things in motion that could spin out of control very quickly. But I know that our nation is weary of war, but our troops have paid a tremendous price over the last 20 years in fighting the war on terror. And I do not want war. I do not want American troops put in harm's way. But somebody has to stop this guy, and that somebody is us. There are only two nations on the earth that can stop him, and China is in allegiance with Putin. We're the only nation in the world that has the capacity militarily to stand up to him. Our other allies will certainly help us, no doubt about that. And they have shed blood in many, many wars, just like our troops have. But somebody's going to have to stand up to this guy, or he's just going to keep on rolling, and then who knows what happens.
Yeah. Scott, do you want to weigh in?
America doesn't get to choose when we go to war. We are attacked, our allies are attacked, or our interests are attacked, and then we go to war. Mm-hmm. That's the pattern, and it's holding here. We have an interest in protecting a fledgling democracy from a raging dictator. That's an interest for the American people, whether we want to accept it or not. If you're an America first type of Republican, then you need to seriously do some self-introspection about how allowing a brutal dictator like Vladimir Putin run wild and free and unchecked, because that's not in your interest. If you're an America first patriot, it's not in your interest to allow this to go unchecked. And that's all I have to say.
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was just to add, in 2015, Tom Taylor invited legislators from Ukraine to Georgia, and I was proud to be the fourth signer in the resolution, giving them just a pat on the back and recognizing their efforts in bringing transparency and democracy back to the Ukraine. Yep. And I mean, that was 2015. I mean, 10 years have not passed, and it's already dying because of one man's demented vision of the world, and that's sad.
Just one more thing I want to add: if you haven't, go to YouTube. President Zelensky of Ukraine is given in Russian an impassioned speech. He's attempting to speak to the people of Russia because Putin won't talk to him anymore, and talking about the pride that he has in his country and all they want to do as a nation of Ukraine is pursue their hopes and dreams. They don't view the Russian people as enemies, and they just want to live in peace. And I commend you to watch that video. It's very powerful.
Couple quick points before we move on to our next subject. The NATO countries are certainly aligned right now in a way they really hadn't been before. However, there are a couple countries who are posing some problems when it comes to certain sanctions, Germany being one of the primary ones. One of those proposed sanctions is blocking Russia from SWIFT, which is international financing, international banking. And certainly the sanctions that President Biden announced yesterday are strong, but blocking Russia from SWIFT would really double down on a lot of that. But Germany standing in the way is certainly a problem. Scott, go ahead.
Germany's position here was cast when they decided to go into business with Russia and their national gas, and Donald Trump, for as much crap as he took at the time for calling Germany out, was absolutely right to do so. And he pointed out to them, you've become completely dependent upon Russia for your natural gas, and you're sending them billions of dollars in which they're going to use to beat you up with.
Which was a smart geopolitical move on Putin's part,
so it's no wonder that Germany is being a problem. By the way, Donald Trump was right about something. Well, and you got me to say that. So.
Yeah, I have a couple points to add to, because that was going to go into my next point. But Buzz, you wanted to say something.
Well, I just wanted to say I think that's excuse me. One criticism I have of President Biden, one thing I think he could do immediately is reverse course on his restrictions that he's placed on American energy production. the pipeline that he canceled, the attempts to stop drilling in various places. We're going to get crunched because the whole world is going to get crunched economically because Russia is a big producer of natural oil and natural gas. So one way to mitigate that is for us to do the things that we have decided since President Biden took office to stop doing, and that can help mitigate that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree with you. And the other thing I was going to say, because both of you made points that I wholeheartedly agree with, and Scott, I think you were alluding to some of this. Yeah, I've seen various comments from conservative commentators, Tucker Carlson, how Fox News justifies keeping him on the air with his full-throated defense of Putin boggles my mind. Candace Owens, who is just a lemming when it's all said and done. I mean, her tweet yesterday, Buzz, I saw that you liked it when I tweeted out after she tweeted, she said it may very well be that Putin, after she defended Putin, she tweeted out something saying it may very well be that Putin lied to the world. And I said, you don't say.
Right.
And then Trump's comments Tuesday night Tuesday on a radio show or podcast where he basically he was like praising, like gloating about Putin, calling him brilliant and genius, and and
I think some of I'm sorry, getting names mixed up. Some of Trump's comments were out of context. It's typical Trump. He's very sloppy in how he speaks. I think he was trying to say that Putin, if you take all of his comments in context, he's trying to say that Putin has just outfoxed Biden, and therefore,
and then he wouldn't have outfoxed
right,
Trump.
that America is suffering because they didn't elect the wise and awesome Donald Trump. But I mean, Trump has always had this weird fascination with strongmen, and that is, to your point, Jason, that is seeping into the right, and it's very scary. It really, really bothers me. Vladimir Putin we should not emulate anything he's done. He has destroyed the free press. His people, he is controlling the education system in his country to feed them propaganda. And that's addressed in President Zelensky's message that the Russian people are hearing lies. He's attempting, and in his large measure been successful in creating a propaganda state for the glorification of himself. And that is nothing that any freedom-loving person in the United States, left, right, or center, should ever want to emulate. And the fact that there are powerful figures on the right like Tucker Carlson who can't see that boggles my mind.
So the only other thing I'll say before we move on is that propaganda machine, regardless of the context or not, Trump's comments are being played on Russian state TV. Absolutely, which is reportedly at least. But
absolutely,
we need to get to Georgia politics. There is we could spend the whole podcast talking about Ukraine and the precipice that we're on with a potential World War III, especially if Zelensky is assassinated. That could very well be Archduke Franz Ferdinand moment, but we'll save that for another time. So here in Georgia politics, there has been a lot going on in terms of both gubernatorial races, congressional races, Senate races, state legislative activity. So the first thing up here is Stacey Abrams apparently has a vote buying scheme. So Scott, I will turn that over to you because I was driving all day yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to really study the agenda. So Scott, go ahead.
Yeah. So the agenda was published on Wednesday, and Jason, the headline is Jason didn't read the agenda here on Friday's live broadcast in advance. But yes, Stacey Abrams has decided to invest in medical debt. You might be familiar with the HBO talk show host who did this, where he went and bought a bunch of medical debt and then forgave the debt, and so he changed some people's lives. Well, over $100 million, Stacey Abrams has announced she's going to go buy some medical debt, and it's very obvious. She didn't say this out loud, but the quiet part is she's buying votes. These people are going to know that Stacey Abrams and her organization bought their medical debt and forgave the medical debt. Now, as a charitable thing, awesome, way to go. Do that stuff privately unless you're actually trying to buy votes. If your intention is to help people, then you don't have to tell other people you're helping people.
Is she doing this through Fair Fight Action, through her campaign, or as an individual? I'm curious.
It's through an organization. I don't know if it's Fair Fight Action, but it's through an organization.
Well, if that organization engages in any sort of express advocacy for a candidate, I would imagine that they're running afoul of federal campaign finance law.
Yeah.
Not to mention state finance.
Well, it could be a separate.
Law, right?
All right. So this is from Newsweek. Abrams PAC wipes out $212 million in medical debt for 108,000 people in 5 states.
Is Georgia one of those states?
Yes. 108,000 people in Georgia, Arizona, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama.
That is
donated $1.34 million to the nonprofit organization RIP Medical Debt to clear debts that carried a face value of $212 million.
Okay.
So her PAC
donated to a
nonprofit that's going to forgive medical debt of people she's asking to vote for her.
Yes.
Okay.
The state where the most people received the debt payoff was Georgia, where 69,000 people had their medical bills paid.
I am very curious. I mean, I'm not making an allegation here, but I am very curious the legal situation that presents.
I'll commend her for the charitable action.
Oh yeah,
right.
For
I mean,
sure.
But let's point out, Scott, this is she's taking other people's money to do this. She's not taking her own personal money. She's taking other people's money and claiming credit for it. But right. Yes, I mean, look, paying off medical debt is a huge problem for many people. And it's awesome that there's an organization out there that's collecting donations to address that. That's an awesome thing to do. But she's using political money to do that while she's running a political campaign.
Clearly a vote buying scheme, in my opinion. I mean, it is as transparent as can be. If it was truly a charitable project on her part, she would not be publicizing it. It would just been a donation that they made, and we're not going to mention it. But the fact that there was press and interest, and she made sure everybody knew what she was doing, and that 69,000 people from Georgia were going to be the beneficiaries of this in a year where she is running for governor. It is a vote buying scheme, plain and simple. That's what it is. I mean, you're taking something that would have been a tremendous help, and you're getting it tainted and polluted with politics, and that's sad. It's sad.
Well, there's that old Georgia governor, I forget his name, who held barbecues all over the state of Georgia and invited everybody to come, and then he lost. And they asked him what happened, and he said, "Well, a bunch of people ate my barbecue and didn't vote for me." So that might be a situation where they might say, "Well, Stacey Abrams paid off my debt, but I didn't vote for her."
So that leads me to my next thing. So Jen Jordan has apparently given comments that it is a Black Democrat probably can't win statewide. Buzz, you saw this one right before we came on.
Yeah,
I would just like to say that Raphael Warnock, Michael Thurman, and Thurbert Baker would like a word.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So this is from Insider Advantage. They do their sinking boats. So I'll just read the quote. All right. So State Senator Jen Jordan, Democrat, Sandy Springs, claims that, quote, "If you have to run statewide and you're a Black candidate, you ain't gonna win probably." I'm assuming that's an accurate quote. Maybe there's some context.
I would love to have seen her make that statement in Ebenezer Baptist Church.
Yeah.
Right in front of Senator Warnock. I would love to have seen his facial reaction in the background as she stood at the pulpit and made that statement.
He might be shocked to learn that he has no chance.
I mean, that's obviously kind of aimed at Stacey Abrams losing in 2018 and her running again for re-election. And look, I mean, none of us can really say what's going to happen in November. Certainly the economic conditions in the United States, particularly Georgia, getting hit so hard with inflation, that certainly bodes ill for Democrats. At the same time, what's happening in Ukraine could be a boost to President Biden if he handles the situation correctly. Because as he may very well be, if he is not already a wartime president, and voters have a tendency to stick by the president in power in a time of war. See 2002 midterms.
Yep.
That said, it's just a ludicrous statement. It's just a stupid comment.
Maybe they're just trying to lower the bar and set expectations and point towards racism as a reason why they lose come November. Maybe they're just they're plowing the field to plant the seeds of racism as the reason why they lose, and not because they're completely and totally out of touch and their agenda is out of touch with the average Georgian. Maybe that's what she's really doing.
Maybe so. I don't know. But
listen, I've talked to Jen Jordan a lot.
So stupid.
But listen, I've talked to Senator Jordan, and I've had debates with her. We debated. I was on the pro Second Amendment side of a debate. She was on the anti Second Amendment side of that debate in front of the Georgia Bar Association. And she said some things then that I thought, wow, she's supposed to be this really smart person, but these things that she's saying, she's not dumb, but those things she's saying are sure are dumb. I would put this in that category, that, and it's sort of been my experience with her.
Yeah.
It's what I believe the term is a gaffe, right?
Yes, it's a gaffe for sure. Categorized gaffe. Check.
So someone needs to tell me why Herschel Walker is upset with both Governor Brian Kemp and his primary opponent David Perdue, because I don't.
Herschel is not a stop the steal guy. It turns out he has made several comments recently. One at the Faith and Freedom Coalition lunch that Buzz and I were both at, where he said, we need to get beyond this last election and start talking about things that matter to Georgians and Americans. And he said, I'm mad at Brian Kemp and David Perdue for splitting the party over this last election. We got to look forward and have an agenda that's going to appeal to people.
Brian Kemp split the party.
Right. Right.
Wrong diagnosis there, Herschel.
I'm not going to split hairs, but it is becoming more and more apparent that Herschel wants to move beyond the election in his campaign talking points. He has said this now multiple times, that this is not something that is good for the party, that we need to look forward. And some of his opponents have hit him on, you don't want to talk about the election. Well, I'll talk about the election. And they're not gaining any traction because, they're not a UGA Heisman Trophy winner. So,
right.
That's the real story there.
What Herschel needs to do is get Stetson Bennett to endorse his campaign, and then he's united the entire, he's connected the dots between 1980 and
multiple generations of Bulldogs.
It's over.
I'm telling you right now, there are two people who could take out Stetson Bennett. One of them is age qualified. That one is Kirby Smart. If he ran for U.S. Senate, he would win.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and he would beat Herschel. The other one is if he was 30 years old and constitutionally qualified to be a United States Senator, it would be Stetson Bennett.
I don't know. I think he loses the Georgia Tech crowd, though. I'm just saying.
Yeah, fair. Stetson Bennett, if you're watching this podcast, and Lord knows you are, when you turn 30, or 25 for that matter, you could run for United States Congress or you could run for U.S. Senate, and you will get elected in a damn landslide.
Well, maybe he should run for the 10th.
Well, everybody else is. There is actually some consolidation in the 10th. As everyone knows, we have a DeKalb County resident, again, not prohibited in Georgia, but there is a DeKalb County resident running in a very rural district, the 10th congressional district, and it's being used against him. Surprising absolutely no one.
Right.
Of course, we are talking about Snuggles.
There's two people surprised. Vernon Jones and Donald Trump are surprised by that.
Fair enough. So Snuggles is of course he's been endorsed by President Donald Trump, who is hosting a fundraiser for him. I didn't read the fundraiser, but I assume this is at Mar-a-Lago. because God knows Trump never leaves his bunker. But it does certainly seem that that voter or politicians and endorsements are coming in from the 10th, and there's a lot of consolidation, or so it seems, behind Mike Collins, who, for all intents and purposes, seems to be the front runner in Georgia's 10th congressional district. So,
Right.
am I in the 10th right now? No, I am not in the 10th right now. So I had to ask Aaron. I'm in the 4th. Oh God.
Well, neither are several of the candidates who are running for the 10th. So don't feel bad, Jason.
But yeah, Scott,
you can run, but you can't vote for yourself. That's
fair enough. And neither can Vernon Jones. Scott, you were the one who pointed this out to us this week. So
yeah. So the sledgehammer guy decided to call it quits. You know, he had a big
Matt
Fox News,
Matt Richards, right?
Matt Richards, and he endorsed Mike Collins.
Mhm.
So I think this is a pattern that should begin to form. I don't know Mike Collins. Again, the only interaction I ever had with him was when he said that Donald Trump was the best president in his lifetime. And I said, you mispronounced Ronald Reagan. But he is doing well. He is hammering Vernon Jones at every opportunity. We've talked about this over the last several weeks. He goes into places and he says, anyone here want to have a DeKalb County person be your next congressman? Raise your hand. And in one room, there were 0 hands. And in the other, we saw 1. And in the second room, Vernon Jones actually had to live through that himself and see it with his own eyes, that these people who are Republican activists were not interested in having a person from DeKalb County represent them in the U.S. Congress. That being said, there are still a lot of people out there, and they're still clinging to the hope beyond hope that they're going to somehow make a runoff. I would encourage them to start doing a little soul searching for the good of the party, for the good of the country, and maybe unite behind one of the front runners. If you're polling less than 10% in this race right now, and a couple of those people are friends of mine, if you're polling below 10%, maybe it's time for you to go. I mean, we're looking at a May 24th primary, and it's February 25th as I say these words. You're not gaining traction.
There's some other folks in there that we should mention. Paul Brown, the former congressman and friend of ours, a good guy, solid conservative voting record. Timothy Barr, who's a good friend of ours, and Tim has racked up a number of impressive endorsements, including Jody Heiss and Andrew Clyde and others. So I think those are the group that have a chance, along with Mike Collins. But yeah, I know Mike a little bit. I not just encountered him over the years, and of course when he ran before and made a runoff, lost in a runoff to Jody Heiss, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But he's a longtime businessman, obviously the son of the late great Matt Collins, who was a congressman from those parts for a long time. So it's an interesting race. But I think you're right, Scott. There's going to continue to be some consolidation, at least maybe not people dropping out, but voters are going to start consolidating, I think, around a couple of candidates who they think have a shot to win. And I just don't see Vernon Jones. Wouldn't shock me if Vernon Jones didn't even make the runoff, honestly.
I mean, I kind of expected at this point, and that was 2014 when Collins lost to Heiss in the runoff for that congressional race. I actually was a moderator at a debate during that cycle between about 10 different candidates out here in Newton County. But I think Collins has a lot of name ID, considering that he ran before, and then the 10th is certainly has changed, but it's still large part the previous 10th congressional district.
Yep.
I don't know exactly what percentage.
And I think the big problem that to me that Vernon Jones has, and why this was a really dumb idea, culturally, it's a few miles away from DeKalb County. It's a different world. It's you have crossed that divide between the world of Metro Atlanta and the world of the rest of Georgia when you go out in the 10th district. And just running out there and saying, I love Trump is not going to be enough. Those folks want to know that where do you stand on these issues? And do you have a track record of that? And Vernon is very good at saying the pretty words, but he has no track record of supporting the issues that are important to people in the 10th district. And that's why he's going to fall flat on his face.
Yeah. So let me see what's next here. State Representative Terry England, Scott had a post on this earlier this week. State Representative Terry England is retiring at the end of the year. So I know State Representative England has not been, if I recall correctly from reading Scott's post, has not been a great advocate of school choice. But he is going to be leading the legislature. Scott, I'll let you take it.
Well, I didn't write the post, but it is on
sorry.
there. It's okay. The biggest thing here is that I don't know that there's anybody who knows the state budget better than Terry England. He's been the appropriation chairman for about 10 years. And he is the guy when it comes to the state budget. He knows every line item of it. When he gets up to speak, he has some notes about the budget in front of him, but he speaks about, their bullet points, but he fleshes out when he does the budget presentation every year. He fleshes out every single one of them. It's a bullet point to him. And he goes, but he explains why each item, and it takes him a long time. They bring him bottles of water as a joke. They said, because he takes a long time to go through the budget during budget presentations because he knows everything about it.
Yeah.
And that's a huge blow because I don't think there's anybody right now. And there could be somebody that could get up to speed like that, but as right now, there's nobody that could fill that void.
Yeah.
And he is one of Speaker Ralston's closest friends, if not his closest friend in the legislature and probably in real life too. We do separate our legislative lives from our real lives, but I think they have a genuine connection. Those two guys were together when David Ralston challenged Glenn Richardson for the gavel and stood with him when Ralston lost. And that type of loyalty that was forged, that baptism by fire, they forged this connection, this friendship, this loyalty to one another that is pretty rare in politics.
Yeah.
And it has to be admired for not only its rarity, but for its genuineness and its sincerity. Yes. So that being said, I don't know how this bodes. In the post on Peach Pundit, the question is asked, what's next? And I think it's a valid question, what's next? Because there were the group of people who stood with Ralston are largely gone. Yeah. I don't know that there are any of them left after this year. Richard Smith and Terry England being the last of them. And Richard Smith has told a lot of folks that he's not coming back. So is there anybody left from those 15 or so people who stood with David Ralston? And the majority keeps getting smaller. We're going to be down to 96, 97 seats next year. And so what's next for David Ralston is a natural question because his inner circle continues to go away.
Yeah, I served on the Appropriations Committee under Chairman England, and Scott, everything Scott said is right. He very knowledgeable about the budget, and I think I think the bigger deal, there are very talented people. Todd Jones comes to mind. I don't know if he would be, but
not
Todd Jones,
again.
I don't know that he gets it, but he's a guy who can very quickly pick up on. And there's others on that. Penny Houston knows the budget very, very well, but you can fill that position. You can replace that position with a person who can do the job. But I think the bigger thing, as Scott mentioned, is this is a big ally of Speaker Ralston, and I don't think we know that I know, and there have been people who have wanted to retire, and the Speaker said, "Please hang on for one more term," and they do it. So I think it's come to the point. I don't know what happened. I'm not privy to those discussions, but it's come to the point where the Speaker has said, "Okay, I get it. You need to go home." And people should understand, being appropriations chair in the Senate as well, but especially in the House, because the budget originates in the House, it's different. It's not a 40-day-a-year job.
No,
it's a year-round job. I mean, when the session ends, they may take a few weeks off, but then the budget staff and Chairman England will begin working again on the next budget, and it doesn't stop. And so that can certainly be very exhausting. He's done it for a long time, and I certainly understand the reason that he would say, it's time for somebody else to step up and do this job because I want to go home and be with my wife and kids. And I wish him well. Terry's a good guy, an honest guy. He was always kind to me in the legislature. And in one correction, he's come around on school choice.
Okay.
And he's been helpful I know we're going to talk a little bit about that later, but he's been part of that evolution that is that's happened a little bit in the House. That is, he's been helpful on those matters. So in recent years, yeah.
So the next time on the agenda, which correct me if I'm wrong here, Scott, but is this a sort of a nod towards your BFF, Candace Taylor? Jesus, guns, babies certainly sounds like a nod towards Candace Taylor. And Blaire
Erskine.
Yeah. Erskine, which I don't get the reference at all.
Well, funny you should say that. I didn't know who Blaire Erskine was until this week when she decided to make apparently she is a writer and sometimes contributor to Jimmy Kimmel's show.
I think that's right. Yeah.
And so I don't watch Kimmel, right?
Yeah, same.
I'm in my 40s, so I don't watch Kimmel.
Late night TV is dead to me since David Letterman quit being funny a few years before he retired. So.
Yeah, right. Right around the time
I haven't watched late night TV since I was like a teenager. So
right. I mean, Fallon's okay. Fallon's funny.
Yeah, he's funny.
Okay, we're gonna go back here for a second because Fallon, when he was on Saturday Night Live, ruined every single skit he was ever in because he couldn't stop laughing.
But that was what was funny about it. It was he's a real dude. It shouldn't have been there in the middle of all that stuff, and that was what was funny.
I cannot.
There's a few funny things, but late night TV is just, it's nowhere near what it was. I mean, yeah, Kimmel is awful. Stephen Colbert, I mean, good grief.
Mean-spirited. Colbert's just.
Yes.
I've never watched Colbert. He's just mean-spirited.
But I will say,
Conan was a funny guy, and now he's gone too.
Conan was funny, but Fallon is the Antichrist. But go ahead, Scott.
Well, of my options for late night TV, I choose Fortnite. That being said,
12.
Yes. Yeah. So, but that being said, I had no idea who Blaire Erskine was until Greg Bluestein retweeted one of her videos where she was making fun of our favorite puppy to kick, which is Candace Taylor.
My favorite puppy to kick is She Who Must Not Be Named, but
but she's not. Who She Who Not Must Be Named is not a puppy. Candace Taylor is a puppy. I mean,
we love KT on this podcast, no doubt.
I mean, I have a soft spot for Candace Taylor, not because I want to vote for her because I think she's a serious candidate, but because of just how awesome her stupidity is.
She is the 2022 novelty.
Look, we love Jesus. We love guns.
We love babies.
I mean,
I just don't want Jesus to give guns to my babies. That's all.
I love guns.
Yeah, well, she's not trying to get your vote, Jason.
Fair enough.
But so Blaire Erskine has this piece, and I tweeted out, hey, I don't think Blaire understands because she's making Candace more popular. Candace went and raised a ton of money because Blaire Erskine attacked her this way. And frankly, the video wasn't funny.
But right? Maybe not a ton, but some.
Well, relatively speaking, when your average weekly haul is a couple $100 and then you raise tens of thousands, that's So that being said, the video that Ms. Erskine made was not all that funny, and it pumped Candace up in sort of like a dangerous type of way, in my opinion. So I just pointed out, hey, look, I don't think you understand that you're actually making her more accessible, more popular, and bringing attention to her. And Blaire Erskine decided to tweet back at me and attack me and say that I overestimated her power and as well as my own intelligence, to which I replied something along the lines of "bless your heart." And I also found that the source material is funnier than the video that Blaire Erskine made.
No, that's true.
It is, though. I mean, because the Blaire Erskine video is not funny at all. No. But anything that Candace Taylor puts out is absolutely hilarious. So anyway.
Well, I mean, the other thing, the weird thing that's on Candace Taylor's bus. So yeah, it says guns, babies, Jesus.
Right.
Then it says, "I'm the one you've been waiting for,"
which is also one of her slogans in her commercial that we ran on the show. So I'm not surprised by that, but you're absolutely right to say that. Well, how arrogant must you be to say, "I'm the one you've been waiting for"? I am like Jesus because I am what you've been waiting for. I am the second coming or the first coming of Candace Taylor. I don't know. Bottom line is all of it to me is humor. It's theater. It's entertaining. I don't take her seriously. I don't think the average voter takes her seriously. But when somebody like Blaire Erskine tries to score some cheap political laughs and fails, frankly, because she wasn't funny, it adds some level of exposure to her beyond our few hundred people that watch our podcast, right? So, and when we talk about her, it's like, ah, ha, ha, she's silly, funny, ha, ha, ha. We don't take her seriously. When she does it, she has this national audience who are like, all right, the evil lefty woke mob media people from California are trying to tell us what to do. Don't tell me what to do. I'm going to send Candace Taylor a check just because Blaire Erskine attacked her. And that's how it works in Georgia.
Yeah.
And she didn't understand that. So
fair enough.
Well, and no, that I mean, among the things I learned this week, in addition to the existence of a person called Blaire Erskine, is that Greg Bluestein said that she is written up in his forthcoming book as a person who was instrumental in turning Georgia blue.
See, this is why you can't believe a damn word Greg Bluestein says, because there's no way the three of us who are plugged into Georgia politics in a way that the average citizen is not, didn't even know who she was until this week. And Greg's like saying, oh, she helped turn us blue.
Yeah, I was days old when I learned that Blaire Erskine was more powerful than Stacey Abrams in turning Georgia blue.
Right.
So turning our attention a little bit to the primary for governor. David Perdue has what some might call a gaffe.
Another one?
Yeah, this one is
don't say.
This is pretty bad. So David Perdue has rolled out a new ad that features him shaking hands with a police officer who was arrested for child pornography.
Grady Sanford, Forsyth County Chief Deputy, and was at an event where Perdue was there, and they used some stock footage of him shaking hands with this guy from this event. Now, granted, there were a lot of Republicans at the event, and the Perdue campaign has tried to spin this as, well, Marty Kemp was at the event too. The Kemp campaign didn't decide to put his video in a current campaign ad. And at the time, he hadn't been charged with anything. He was just a guy in uniform with a badge. So the act of shaking the hand of this guy is not what is in question, because that's completely forgivable. Politicians and candidates shake hands of a lot of people. They have no idea who they are. Yeah. And it's natural to want, if you're a politician, to thank the person wearing a badge and a gun for protecting our communities. And so that part he gets a pass from for me, but your campaign chose that after he had been arrested and charged with distribution of child pornography, multiple counts. So cringe moment, man, totally cringeworthy. And also par for the course for this campaign. All of the competent political operatives have signed up with other campaigns. And so he's using some of the people who helped him before. And we know what the result with that was, because we have Senator Ossoff. So yeah, guys, gotta knock you for this, because you screwed up again.
Well, it was also very, I mean, the trying to drag in the first lady into this, that's really bizarre too, because you want to make a dude mad, especially a Southern gentleman like Brian Kemp is take a shot at his wife.
Right.
And, that just ain't done.
Right.
Yeah. So Scott had an interesting text to it this week. House Bill 906, which is a civil asset forfeiture reform bill dealing with off-road vehicles. It previously didn't have a requirement for a criminal conviction, but now it does. And although I don't know a whole lot about this bill, but I do know a lot about civil asset forfeiture because of my day job. Civil asset forfeiture being what it is basically legalized theft in the state of Georgia, as well as the federal level. Government can take your property without securing a conviction. Hell, they don't even have to charge you. And that's a big problem in Georgia. Scott has done Allah's work. Yes, I said Allah. Has done Allah's work. Okay, fine, Confucius.
I reject that too.
Has done Zoroaster's work.
Oh my gosh!
And trying to
gonna invoke Zool.
I feel like I need an exorcism.
Gozer's work in trying to change Georgia civil asset forfeiture law to require criminal conviction. So, Scott, tell us a little bit about HB 906 and how the bill has been.
I feel like I need
approved.
to start by saying that I accept the Lord Jesus is my Lord and Savior before
Amen.
I begin this. Wow, I'm gonna go get another baptism.
The power of Christ compels you.
This is. Well, it's odd that you should use all that phraseology to start this, because it is the Reverend Pastor Randy Nix who has brought this bill, who Chairman Nix and I have had in the past. So I would describe it charitably as a strained relationship.
Frosty,
what's that?
Frosty?
Yeah. I think at one point in time,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I feel like at one point, if he could have gotten away with killing me, he would have. But all of that to say, Randy Nix has been doing very good work and listening to a lot of people, including some feedback that I gave in committee about his legislation, which started out completely awful, as is like to do a lot of ideas that are trying to solve a problem. They are not fully baked when they're introduced as legislation. So always give your legislator a pass on their first draft and use it as an opportunity to give them feedback. Chairman Nix was able to take that feedback from various groups, and this is what he's put into his bill. This is the substitute. It says, in any instance where an off-road vehicle is operated by a person who was arrested, charged with, and convicted of a violation of basically reckless driving or fleeing from police, the vehicle is declared to be contraband and subject to forfeiture. And then that forfeiture proceedings must be stayed pending the outcome of the criminal proceeding, which is exactly what I've been trying to do on a broader scope for years and years and years. They do have one problem with proportionality, because the maximum fine for the crimes here is $5,000. So if the off-road vehicle exceeds that value, they're going to have a TIMS issue with excessive fines. But in those instances where it's $1,000 motorbike and they get caught, which they're likely to get caught, that person could lose their motorbike, but only after they're charged with and convicted of a crime. And that would be the first time civil asset forfeiture in Georgia had any type of conviction requirement. And so I have mixed feelings about it, but I'm happy for that aspect. What I'm also excited about are first and foremost, that the Prosecuting Attorneys Council and the Sheriff's Association and the Police Chiefs Association are not fighting him on this.
Yeah, that's good.
They've accepted that, which they fought me tooth and nail when I had similar language on a broader scope. And they also are not fighting him on the stay language, because the police in Georgia had told me it's impossible for them to wait until the criminal proceedings are complete to dispose of the property, because they don't want to incur the cost of storing or maintaining that property. Mm-hmm. But here it was a police officer from the police chief of LaGrange, Georgia, who brought this and said, we're willing to stay in these cases.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Go ahead and put that in there, get it passed, put it into law, and we'll use it as a launching pad for a bigger effort later.
Good news.
Very good news.
Hopefully it will spread throughout the law.
Yeah.
Spread throughout Georgia code and we'll do this everywhere.
And I don't think that Chairman Nix watches the Peach Pundit podcast. So if you're one of his colleagues, let him know that I gave him a good old pat on the back here.
which as I'm sure
he won't believe it.
Yeah, I was just about to say, as I'm sure those of you who watch the podcast or listen to the podcast know, is rare for Scott. He doesn't even give me or Buzz a pat on the back. He just usually tears us down via text every single day. It's actually quite.
I don't. These lies I'm filing suit.
Chairman Nix should feel very blessed that Scott has praised him. So.
Yes, Gozer is smiling upon him. So there's been a lot of news this week. So I caught a tweet this week from our good friend Corey DeAngelis, who has been following school choice initiatives around the country.
There's some people mad at Corey DeAngelis under the Gold Dome.
Corey is the director, national director of research at School Choice Now. He's also a adjunct scholar at the Cato Institute, a senior fellow at the Reason Foundation. And Corey is his tweets are that have been pushing school choice are fairly notorious. He's picked up quite a following on Twitter, almost 90,000 followers, and he is very good at his job in terms of keeping people up to date on what's happening with school choice. But he tweeted out something this week, and I'll read his tweet. Georgia House Speaker David Ralston killed a bill to fund students instead of systems, and he uses in quotations here, Republicans, close quote, in the Georgia House got their feelings hurt because their constituents received mailers urging them to support school choice. Such a weak excuse to side with the monopoly. And he further said, well, he actually has a thread here, so I'm not going to continue. But he closed one of his final tweets in said thread was, he's up for re-elections. Georgia House Republicans need a new leader, which is not a way to win fans with the Speaker of the Georgia House.
No, and also we've seen the futility in trying to,
Right.
And that's just not the path. So
the question is,
as Corey likes to tweet, he loves to tweet, "This is the way." That is not the way.
Right. And as I've warned many people, whenever Georgia is mentioned in some sort of legislative initiative from like an outside group, I get these phone calls and it's like, so what should we do? Should we pressure the Speaker? I'm like, no. He will kill your bill and not think twice of it. Yeah. That is not the way to win friends and influence people in the Georgia General Assembly. That said, House Bill 999,
and HB 60.
And HB 60.
Yeah.
And HB 60. So these two bills, it seems that they are dead, or are they, in the words of the character from The Princess Bride, or are they mostly dead? I think that's largely a question. So Buzz, I'm going to let you kick us off here, because I know this is school choice is a particularly big deal to you. So why don't you kick us off here?
Yeah. So, and forgive me, I'm going to go on a little monologue here. I got to go back really to 2014, and I'll keep this brief. I won't take that. It won't take 8 years to do this, but that's how long we've been working on this. People from an employee of the American Federation for Children, who's not there any longer, came to me and said, "How do we get the Speaker Ralston's ear on this issue?" And Scott sort of referenced earlier some of these close allies. At that time, I said, look, you got to find, there were 25 people who voted for David Ralston for Speaker who in his race when he lost to Glenn Richardson. Many of those became his closest allies and his brain trust in the House. And so they went and found one, and that was Mark Hamilton. And in 2015, Mark Hamilton introduced the first ESA bill in the state of Georgia. He got it to the Rules Committee, and we were working hard. And Mark, I remember it was a crossover day. We were doing everything we could do. And I went up to Mark and I said, what's going on? He goes, "I've played every chip I can play. We don't have the votes." And so that ended that year. Then Representative Wes Cantrell came and picked up the ball, and he's been running with it his entire time. And he's got HB 60, and then this year he introduced HB 99, which are both similar but just kind of funded differently. We were making great progress. There's a coalition of about 11 groups right now that are involved in working and advocating for these bills.
Can I just point out at this point, Buzz, that I'm not affiliated with any of those groups in any way whatsoever. That's an important point because of my criticism, but go ahead.
There's about 11 groups, and we have all been doing various things to advocate for this bill. A lot of it attempting to get constituents to call their state representative, especially folks that we know are on the fence on this issue, and let them know, hey, when you get your call from your superintendent threatening you, which they all get every year, that there are more constituents standing with you if you will support this than the superintendent and his cronies who stand against you. And that was the attempt. Unfortunately, tragically, stupidly, American Federation for Children sent out a mailer, and I know Corey kind of downplayed it. Unfortunately, the mailer, and it was in the AJC article because there it was printed there, or a picture of it. It had a picture of the representative, and it said, "Your representative." This is essentially what the words were. I'm not quoting it exactly, but Don't let your representatives stand with the liberals against school choice. On the backside is a picture of Democratic all-stars like Joe Biden and others, Nancy Pelosi.
Stacey Abrams.
Yes, don't let your representatives stand with them. They are, we must support school choice.
The actual phraseology was tell your representative to stand up to them.
Yeah. So that's just a really bad tactic. That's not persuasion, that's an attack. And I think that's the problem here. That obviously angered, because some of the people who got that were some close allies of the speaker. They were the targets, and that set off the chain of reactions that led to Tuesday of this week, the speaker saying the bill is dead, telling his caucus that the bill is dead. And to him, I can't remember a time where this happening, the speaker going public and calling Greg Bluestein and saying, I killed this bill and let me tell you why. And that set off a whole bunch of things where now the speaker is getting hammered in some national conservative press over this issue, and it's just a big mess. And I think, I tweeted, my head was spinning. My head's been spinning really since Friday when I started getting calls from legislators asking me what the heck I was doing, and I said, well, what are you talking about? And then this happened. I realized what was going on. I said, oh man. Yeah. Because I think the important thing here is, a couple of things we know. Speaker Ralston is very protective of his caucus, and in his mind, that's what he's doing. He's protecting his caucus from an outside group that has attacked some of his members. Therefore, he's taken this step. I also know he's a guy who is very savvy and understands politics and understands what's good and bad for his caucus. The politics of this issue outside of the Gold Dome haven't changed. It is still incredibly popular. And, all of the things that we've talked about on this podcast, homeschooling numbers, the number of people homeschooling, doubling, charter school enrollment up 9% in the state of Georgia, private school enrollment up, the 650,000 kids who are in schools that the state of Georgia says, by their own metrics, are either D or F rated schools. And there are other bills under the dome that are trying to address this anger that parents feel. This, bans on CRT, and the governor's got his Bill of Rights that includes banning a mask mandate. You can do that stuff. None of those bills that are left there address that core issue that parents are really, really upset about learning loss of their kids, and about how poll after poll after poll tells us that parents do not want schools to go back to how they were before the pandemic. So I say all that to say, the speaker's really mad. There's no doubt about it. Madder than I could recall him being. Scott and I have been there. He's killed bills before. He's come into our caucus meetings and said, when an outside group did something and told us, well, forget about that. It's done. It's over. That's happened before. I've never seen him go public before. So that to me indicates that he's really, really mad. But for the rest of us in this coalition, what we're all trying to wrap our heads around. Okay, this has happened. That bill's probably dead. The session isn't over yet. So we know that zombie bills emerge, Frankenstein bills emerge, where you piece together bills that were thought to be dead. So how do we repair the damage that's been done and get back to that situation? Because I really do believe we had the best chance passing an ESA bill than we've ever had since Mark Hamilton first introduced this bill in 2015. And I know that's a long thing, and I'm sorry for rambling on so long, but this is really important to a lot of us. And as I tweeted, this was a kick in the gut. And we got, how do we, what the rest of us are trying to figure out how do we repair the damage that's done and get back to where we can do something great for kids in this state? Because it's important, not just as a policy issue, but the Republicans, this is a winning issue. This is such a winning issue.
Right.
From the governor, for our candidates for governor, U.S. Senate, Congress, State House and Senate, this there's a parents movement brewing in this country. It smashed Terry McAuliffe. It recalled 3 board members in San Francisco, and it's coming. It's in Georgia. Parents are getting organized, and they're going to smash somebody if they don't help them.
So it's February 25th. What day are we in the Georgia legislature?
20.
Day 20.
Yeah.
So
Day 20.
So crossover day is March 15th. So we got 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks.
Yeah, day 30 being crossover day. So Scott, I'll let you.
Yeah.
This bill is dead. And the only way it comes back is with divine intervention. It's like Lazarus. It's dead. It's rotting in the grave. It can come back to life.
Real, Scott, so we gotta start from there.
What's that?
Zombies are real, so we need to keep that in mind.
No, zombies are not real. Sorry, Walking Dead. But it's going to require divine intervention. I've lived through this so many times where I've seen good policy, and I'm not talking for Buzz right now, I'm talking for Scott, the former state rep, who for 8 years lived with this type of thing constantly, and it drove me crazy. Good policy dying because David Ralston got his feelings hurt. You can look at this mail piece, and the mail piece, it's not factually inaccurate, but it was ham-fisted. It wasn't well done. It was offensive. It would have been offensive to me if my face was on there. And, and they apparently have sent these mailers to some of the members who were voting for it. I got a call today from a pro-school choice Southern Georgia legislator upset that somebody tweeted at him, "Stop standing with Stacey Abrams," when he had been traditionally voting for school choice measures. One of the few in that area, by the way. And he feels like, well, why am they attacking me? Mm-hmm. Because this type of feedback isn't helpful in the middle of a legislative session. If they had any inclination or any insight at all into Georgia politics, they would have known it would have backfired. It would have blown up. Yeah. However, I would concede to you, if you wanted to debate me, you wanted to challenge me, you would say, Scott, this mailer was crude. It was poorly done. It was insensitive to the process. It was garbage. It was unprofessional. I would concede all of that to you. I would say you win the debate. I'm not going to argue whether the mailer was good. But here's the question I would ask you. So what? So what? You have 600,000 kids stuck in underperforming schools. Which one of them do we need to get to apologize? Which person needs to go to David Ralston? Which 10-year-old girl struggling in her 4th grade math needs to go to David Ralston and say, I'm sorry? Which one? Can we find her? Because that's the person that you're hurting here. Now, you may think you're saving your caucus from a difficult vote, and I get it. That's your role and that's your job. But the people are going to roll these members of your caucus. This is not going away. This is not a threat. It's not quid pro quo. I'm not part of any of the organizations that are for this bill. I'm just passionate about making sure that parents have opportunities to send their kids to schools where they could survive and thrive and become productive citizens. What is happening here is not acceptable. You got your feelings hurt. So what? You're a big boy. You can take it. I've seen you take more than this. The speaker said this was the dumbest thing he's ever seen in his time in office. This is a man who presided over the chamber when one of his members brought a bill that would allow sex offenders to loiter on school campuses. And somehow this is dumber than that. I mean, my last year, one of his members tried to pass a privilege resolution honoring Johnny's Hideaway, and he stopped it. And somehow this is dumber than that. Come on. I understand the hyperbolic language that you think you need to use, but these are 600,000 kids in Georgia stuck in underperforming schools.
Well, let me
go ahead.
Let me just say, I in 6.5 years of Freedom Works, I didn't really get a chance to work on school choice. School choice issues, I always sourced it out to another staffer because I was so focused on higher level issues. And there also wasn't the push that we're seeing in states that we're seeing right now. I am a product of both private and public school. Second and third grade, I went to Mount Zion Christian Academy. I also went back to Mount Zion Christian Academy for 7th, 8th, 9th, and part of my 10th grade year before I switched to Eagles Landing High School in McDonough, Georgia, from which I graduated in 1999. I was in a, for those of you who know my background, my father died when I was 12. My mom did not have an income, and Mount Zion Christian Academy wasn't expensive. It wasn't an expensive school, but when you have one income, because my father died about just a few weeks into my 7th grade year. When you have one income, it helps to have some sort of help. By the time I was a freshman in high school, I had started working. I was 14 years old. I had started working at a Chick-fil-A in South Lake Mall in Morrow, Georgia, to help my mom pay for my education. At that time, minimum wage was about $4.25. I was limited in the number of hours I could work each week because of my age. I basically sat in the back at South Lake Mall in the old food court filleting chicken all day long. For those of you who ever worked at a Chick-fil-A, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Talking about a dirty job there.
Yeah, not fun. It is, and I realize that I am, of the three of us on this podcast, I am more progressive, particularly on social issues. On fiscal issues, I'm about as hard right as you can be. But this issue is one that just makes sense, and it is time for parents to have control over whether it's ESAs, whether it's school vouchers, whatever the case may be. It is time. And I'm sitting across from a guy, Aaron Brooks, who sent his son to private school, and he would agree with me as well. He is nodding as if to say he agrees with me. It is time for parents in Georgia to have the choice of where their kids go to school, to have assistance through ESAs to help with those costs. And it is unconscionable that not only Georgia has not done this yet, but is killing a bill. The Georgia General Assembly, specifically Speaker Ralston, is killing a bill that would benefit so many families,
hundreds of thousands,
who may not be able to afford it otherwise.
Right.
Yeah, and I think I took us back to 2014, 2015 for a reason. There's been an evolution. There's been an increased understanding among Speaker Ralston and the House leadership that what you said is right, and that Jason and Scott, that it's time to do this. And so the challenge now is we had a member of our coalition who went rogue and did this, that created, really, I mean, if you read the article and parse look at the speaker's words, what he was saying was, this turned members who were intending to vote yes or were leaning yes against the bill, and therefore the bill doesn't have the support, so the bill's dead. So, yes, you've got to. You can hate the game, but you got to play it. And David Ralston is Speaker of the House. He's going to be tomorrow. He's going to be next year. There's only two reasons that David Ralston will no longer be Speaker of the House. Either Democrats take over the legislature, or Speaker Ralston decides he's had enough and he wants to go back to Blue Ridge and spend his time up there. He's going to be Speaker until then, so you got to play by his rules. And his rules are, you don't attack his caucus. And that's so that's the challenge that the rest of us in this coalition face right now, is how, okay, that happened. I can't control what that organization did or does. I've met Corey twice, Corey DeAngelis. I can't control what he tweets and what he doesn't tweet. I can try, but it ain't going to happen. I can't control what the Washington Examiner writes. They wrote a pretty harsh article. I can't control what Forbes magazine does, where they wrote an article about that. None of us can control all that. So given all that, what do we do? And that's kind of where we're at, because I think the speaker understands the policy is good and worthwhile and would be a political win. It's just now, and I think that's what's unusual about him going public with this. Now, it's he can't. It's hard for him to reverse course because he's publicly said that, and so I don't know. I mean, I think, you know,
allow me to be Moses, Mr. Speaker. Let my people go.
Yeah, and I think he gets that, and I think he understands that. And he's a very savvy political guy. He understands the politics of this issue, and so, you know, I don't know. He's proclaimed the bill dead. I've been around long enough to know that nothing is ever really dead until sine die happens, until they gavel out at the end of sine die. So I'm going to continue to be the happy warrior on this thing, and whatever I can do to try to make it happen, I'm going to keep doing. Sadly, this is Wes Cantrell's last year in the legislature, because he's committed himself to term limits, and don't ever do that, folks.
Definitely do that, folks.
No. But so
don't,
Wes,
don't surrender before you're legally required to surrender. That's what I always say.
If we can't get it done this year, then we'll be back next year. But we got to find another champion, because Wes Cantrell, and I think Wes has not lashed out at the speaker. He has not. Wes is the ultimate happy warrior. He's been doing it. He has worked harder than I've ever seen a legislator work on this issue, and that's a big reason why we were this close until this happened, to getting this done out of the House. The Senate, because of various things, is much easier to get it through the Senate, which is part of the strategy of doing it in the House that we've been working on these last 2 years, because that's where the most work needed to be done to win people over. But it's frustrating, and my head was still spinning, and but I'm not giving up. I'm going to pick myself up, dust myself off, and get back to work for the kids, because that's what's important.
And well, to channel Ronald Reagan, Mr. Speaker, tear down this wall.
That applies to a lot. There is another option, unfortunately, and I'm loath to even talk about it. And that is, there are going to be something like 30 new members in the majority caucus next year. And so, of your two options, the Democrats take over, the speaker decides to hang it up. The third option is there are 30 new members who are funded by American Federation for Children who get elected. I'm not saying that that's what I want. I'm not advocating for that, but it is a potential political reality that will have to be dealt with if it does occur. And at this point is an option. We have 3 months until May 24th. Not a whole lot of people have announced any type of primary challenges. We're going to have a lot of open seats. And I believe there are organizations out there today, based upon what the speaker has said publicly, they're going into those communities trying to find some school choice champions. Well, and it's that important.
I've got no comment on that, but I'll just say, I think my earlier prediction still stands in my mind. David Ralston's going to be there as long as he wants to be there.
I think that's the most likely.
Until he's ready to pull a Saxby Chambliss and sit on his back porch and drink bourbon, he's going to be there.
And let me just just venture off and say one thing. Anybody who knows Buzz Brockway knows that he is a happy warrior, and really truly cares about doing what's best for Georgia and for the children of parents who simply want choice. I certainly hope, Buzz, that we're eventually successful in this endeavor, and I hope that the mistakes of one don't fall on you, because anybody who knows you knows that you don't play the game like that.
Right.
Well, look, I got chewed out by some of my former colleagues. They weren't really mad at me, but they were venting frustration, and it's a couple of them were people who, I'm not going to name names because there were some private conversations, but a couple of them who were helping Wes and working hard on it, and they're just expressing frustration. But
Yeah.
Speaker has not directed anything at me, and I hope that he understand. I think he knows me well enough to know that none of me. I would never send out a mail piece like that. The organization I work for, Georgia Sent Out for Opportunity, one of the reasons I work there is because that they would never send out a mail piece like that. That's just not how we do things.
I think we,
but-
as candidates for office, know what that feels like. To open your
yeah.
mailbox and see a hit piece.
Yeah.
It's horrible, and we wouldn't do that to our former colleagues. I wouldn't do that. I didn't do that when I was a state rep. I never sent out a negative mail piece or anything about any of my opponents. So it's just dumb what they do.
And not to mention, I mean, there have been folks who served in the legislature in the past who were coordinating with some outside groups on gun rights legislation, if I recall, and it was a source of ire. And you guys know how that feels because you felt like you were being targeted when you actually agreed with the policy.
Georgia gun owners, that's a great example. Georgia gun owners would send threatening emails, and then they would send out to their members' email list to tell us to stop being Nancy Pelosi, as an example.
Right.
Not effective. Not
effective. And there are better ways to get the result you want. But at the end of the day, Georgia's parents and students who are in underperforming schools who simply want a good education are the victims of petty partisan or petty politics, I should say. So, but I just wanted to speak some nice words about Buzz here, because I know Buzz and I've known Buzz for a long time, going on 20 years now, and I've actually remarked to people I've never seen Buzz angry, and I know Buzz truly is a happy warrior, and no one can. I certainly hope no one faults you, and that's all I wanted to say. So
making me all misty-eyed here, man. This is a tender moment on the Peach Pundit.
Kumbaya, my lord.
Well, thank you, Jason. Appreciate you saying that, my friend.
I hate Scott with a passion, and just to break up the
we all do
the love fest, I just wanted to make sure I said that.
So what?
So that is all the time. That is all the time we have this week for the Peach Pundit Podcast. We'll see you next week. Hope you have a good weekend, since we're recording here on Friday, and we'll see you Wednesday next week. So peace out. Have a good one, and go Dogs.
Later, dudes. Go Jackets.